there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Royal Hospital. Well, hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. It's Professor Meg here, and today we have a preview of Royal Hospital. Thank you to Lost Games for sponsoring this video, and with that in mind, please keep in mind that this is a prototype in front of me because this is a current campaign. You can check out the link down below. This is now on GameFound, but Royal Hospital is going to be a game where you are trying to heal as many patients as possible, which will gain you prestige and a higher quality of care and different things like that, while you're also investing in different insurance companies and working on your resource generation. So this is going to be a tableau building game where you are drawing cards every round and then spending every round playing those cards, using all of your different resources, interacting with the different things that you are able to do on the board to get you different actions and things like that. And then you are also going to be drawing patients and trying to save the day, because what really matters is that you are healing these patients, but what matters the most is healing more better patients than anybody else. Now, because this is a tableau building game, I currently have the game board set up in front of us and then just a single player board over here. Sometimes I do have it set up where you have multiple players showing, but for this, I thought it would be best if you could see all of the cards, because this is really where the complexity and beauty of the game comes from. So with that being said, this is the main board that players are going to be playing through, and the pace of play of the game is that you're going to play over 6 rounds. Over the course of these six different rounds, players are going to be gaining victory points, mostly by curing their different patients, which they have to first diagnose, but other things will also gain them victory points along the way. And you are also working on your different resource generation here, as well as your own little player tableau. So you have your different area where you can have all of your different patients. You can have up to 4, and then there are some patients that don't count for that particular area. But then there are also the different cards that you put into play to basically change the rules of the game to make things a bit better for you, so that when certain things trigger, other things happen, or you get an immediate effect, or there is an action that you are able to take. So you can see over here we also have our resources, and then after that we have our 2 decks of the things that we are drawing that I described here. Now that may have made the game seem easy, and I think that's because a lot of us understand tableau building and resource generation in an abstract sense, but when you start the game, you start off with basically nothing, and you really only have those 6 rounds to get from nothing to something very strong. Now that does happen throughout the game. You will feel stronger and stronger, and by the midpoint of the game, you are definitely leaning into a specific strategy where you either have cards that benefit off of each other, or you've gotten into a lot of the different resources on the board, but that being said, the rounds will go by very, very quickly. So I'm now going to go over the board with you here first and the round structure before we look at the cards in detail, because that's where a lot of the complexity is in the game as well. So here, looking at the board, you do have your score tracker where you're going to be getting victory points when you are healing your different patients, and you also have a prestige tracker. Now this prestige tracker you will be gaining throughout the game, and at the end of every round you're going to score victory points based on where you are. Now this is not a 1-for-1 scale. You can see here that if you had a 5 prestige, you would only be getting 2 victory points at the end of that round. So it isn't super strong, but it's something that you definitely want to work toward, because that's what's going to give you an edge over your opponents round over round throughout the game. There are also these here that when players reach them, they're able to, if they are the first player to get to them, they're going to gain that resource. Now these are Congress doctors, and you can see them throughout the board when you reach different thresholds, even in these resource tracks when players get there, for the credits, and for these different insurance companies when you invest in them and reach the end, as well as the ambulance track. So these are all different ways for you to get this additional resource so that you get it and your opponents don't, and it works as an additional stack for you. Now there's also your quality of care track here, and this is going to be really important for endgame scoring, because at the end of the game, players are going to get a victory point for every track that is here and here, that they are ahead on another player, but they're also going to either gain or lose points based on where they are on this quality of care track. So it would be very important to be up high, and even if someone was above you, they would get a victory point ahead of you, but you would still get positive victory points as opposed to negative victory points at the end of the game. Now this is going to happen when your patients die, if you're not able to heal the patients that are in your different areas, because there are going to be certain thresholds, which we'll get to in a little bit, but if they ever don't make it and you aren't able to save them, that is where this will come into play. You also have an ambulance track here, and when you move your ambulance, you're able to take the different benefits shown. So you can see that there are different resources throughout the board. This would be gaining a prestige, this is gaining a diagnosing token, a healing token, a staff token, things like that. This would gain you a helicopter action. So those are different other things that you are able to do throughout the game. Now over here are the insurance companies, and you're going to be able to invest in these different insurance companies for benefits. And this will also again gain you victory points at the end of the game if you are ahead of another player in this track. But when you do so, you have different cards that will trigger telling you to advance on the track, or as you can see, you can have it happening here on the ambulance track. And when you do so, you are going to gain the benefits in the row, which are very good. And you also, if you are the first person to reach this 5th area, as I said, you'll get a Congress Doctor as well. Now, because you do get the victory points for being ahead of different players, this is a reason for you to be going for different insurance companies from your friends as well, because you may be strengthening in one where they strengthen in another, but by the end of the game, you may be able to catch up and surpass them as well as you build your Tableau engine. So it is a really interesting mechanic where you're going to be able to get a lot from it, and you're going to be able to try to beat out your opponents. And over here we have our resource generation area, which, as you can imagine, as you grow in these different areas, at the beginning of every round when you gain resources, you'll gain more and more resources. So this can be very important for you to be paying for all of the different things that you are trying to do, because this is a very tight resource management game where you really need to increase yourself on these different tracks to be able to do basically anything that you want to do. Players start off with 15 money, but then after that you want to increase as much as possible. And also, when you have a staff and research, that's going to allow you to draw even more cards for the different rounds. We'll get to that next, so just hold on to that thought. But before we move on, I will note that research is meant for specific things, but your staff you are able to use as a diagnostic or a healing resource. So these are two different resources. You have your healing and your diagnostic, which we'll get to when we talk about patients, but your staff are able to count as either of those, almost as a wild for that. However, your research token is this purple one here. So now talking about the different rounds, that will dictate how many cards are drawn each round. There's only 6 rounds to the game, and at the beginning of the game, you will start off with 1 patient. On the second round, you'll draw 2 cards and have 2 patients, and by the end of the game, you'll be drawing 4 cards and getting 6 patients. Now, 6 patients may sound like way too many because you only have 4 spots on your player board, but don't worry, part of that Tableau building is that you're going to have additional spots for your patients in your area. Now, depending on your levels in staff and research, that will allow you to draw additional cards. However, you still are only able to keep what is shown for the round. So you aren't able to keep any extra cards, but it will give you a lot more variety for what you are trying to work toward, because this is a Tableau building game, and the cards that you choose are probably the most important decision that you'll make throughout the game. Alright, now looking over here at your patient area before we talk about the cards, you can see that I have 2 patients inside of my hospital and 1 that is outside. That's because this patient is terminal, and you will actually have to heal them every single round, round over round, but they do not take up a bed in your area. But because of that, you'll have to heal them. They'll provide an ongoing benefit, but if you ever aren't able to heal them, then they will become deceased. Now, you will have to diagnose your patients before you are able to heal them, so you can see that this one is face down, and when you are drawing patients, you're drawing them from the bottom, so you're not able to see, but this one you can see is a bit difficult to diagnose. Now, we do only have 2 diagnostic resources here, but we also have a staff, which would be a wild, so we could spend all 3 of those to flip this over to figure out what we need to do to heal them. Now, this is very lucky for us because this one would cost 3 hearts to be able to heal, and again, we are able to use our staff to do so, and then this one we would be able to heal with our final staff. Now, this is where you're getting both victory points and income, because each of these were providing 3 victory points and 3 income, meaning 6 victory points and 6 income. The income is you're just taking money. That's not increasing your actual income tracker. Specific things will tell you to do that, but this is what you'll be getting when you are healing your different patients, and then they will be removed from your play area. You'll also use this area here to track the different patients that you have healed, and you'll be tracking yourself on the quality of care track as well. Now every round is going to start with players drawing both cards for their cards that they are drawing and their patients, and then they're going to produce resources, refresh any of their cards, their abilities that they've used, and then they'll go in player order taking one action. So that action could either be playing a card or an action that's in a card already in play that they have, or interacting with something on the board. But that being said, players are going to go around until they pass, and then the round will end. Now once they pass, that's when you're going to be able to diagnose and heal your patients. So you won't be in that phase until all of the other actions are done, which can make things a bit tricky because you will have these areas full with your different patients waiting for them to be healed, and you won't be able to heal them until that phase of the game. After that is the cleanup phase, and then the next round will start. Now taking a look at the cards that are here in front of us, you can see that this one is a starting card, which is why it has no cost attached to it. So you would have this card at the beginning of the game, and this is one that you are able to use in action to advance once on any insurance track. So that's a way that you would be moving forward on these and then gaining the benefits that are there. Another one is this resident program here, which would have cost you 1 research token to be able to play, and this is an ongoing benefit, which is gain 1 in your prestige track whenever you play a resident program card, including this one. So you can see the stripe at the bottom is this green color, and it says resident program. That's the type that it is. So whenever you play an additional green card to your play area, you would be able to get that prestige. So for example, if we wanted to play this one here, which instead would cost us 15 money, we would also take a prestige. Now this one is an instant effect, which is you can increase your staff or research production by 1. So that's where you would be increasing this production, which again, not only gives you more resources, but is going to help you with your card draw at the beginning of every round. Now here we have 2 cards that cost money and produce instant effects, where this one is $24 and it is the facilities type card, which again, other things will trigger the types of cards that are in play. And this one is increase your diagnostic and healing production by 1. So that's another way for you to increase your production, whereas this one is an instant and advance on 2 different insurance tracks. So that's a way for you to increase on the insurance tracks, but they do have to be different. And then over here we also have a referral, which again would cost you the 1 research token to be able to put into play, but after that you have an ongoing effect for the rest of the game, which would be gain 1 ambulance movement whenever you play a specialist card. So for example, if we had a specialist card in our hand to play and we had the 15 money to be able to do so, we would be able to increase our diagnostic production by 1, gain 1 prestige, as well as being able to gain an action here on the ambulance track. By far, the most satisfying aspect of Royal Hospital is going to be the card play that you're interacting with, and making sure that you increase both your research and your staff is going to make sure that you're drawing as many cards as possible. That way you can choose the cards that you specifically want, and it feels very, very satisfying when you can find the combinations that work together really well. This game also has a lot of ways that you can score victory points and a lot of ways to pivot around what opponents are doing, so this is definitely one of the ones that you are able to lean into a specific strategy, but if anything should change, you can always pivot your strategy and try to gain extra victory points somewhere else. A lot of these cards can be very powerful, especially the ongoing effects, and some of them that have instant effects can be really, really exciting and change the tides of a particular turn, especially when you need to gain a little bit more prestige to get an extra victory point at the end of the round. Now, if you'd like to see a bit more about how the game plays, there will be a gameplay on the channel, and you can check out their game found link down below to see everything that they have planned for the project. Thank you to Lost Games for sponsoring this video. I'm Professor Meg, and I will see you all next time. Bye!